Hey guys, Officer Blanson here at the Colorado Springs Police Department. Welcome to another Crime Prevention Thursday. I've had a lot of questions over the last couple months regarding our homeless and transient issues. So I've got Officer Tim Kippel here, the Colorado Springs Police Department's homeless outreach team, kind of answer some of those questions. Officer Kippel, can you explain the signs that we're starting to see in the medians, the unlawful to occupy the medians, and the handouts don't help? Can you kind of let the audience know kind of what that's about?
Sure, Jason. So as you're traveling through the city, going to work, going to school, or whatever, you may see two different signs out there on the medians. One that says unlawful to occupy, and the other one says handouts don't help. So the unlawful to occupy signs came about as a traffic safety measure. They identified certain intersections throughout the city, and there's a whole criteria of how they determine these things based on the speed limits, based on the width of the roadway, based on the width of the medians. So there's several different metrics they use to decide where these signs would go. But some of those signs, we get people asking, well, how come there's not signs on, say, Nevada or Cimarron, places like that, on the east side of town, Powers Boulevard. Those are actually state highways, and so there has been some red tape with that, getting those in place, because those roadways actually belong to the state and not to the city. So we have that. So they're there to help motorists and those people who may be there panhandling, saying this is not a safe spot to be. Not that there's a lot of city streets it's not super safe to be, but they did have to kind of draw the line in the sand and say these are absolutely unsafe places for folks to occupy those medians.
So they're unlawful to occupy the median signs. That's for the safety of these individuals soliciting for handouts and things like that. Well, what about the handouts don't help sign?
So the handouts don't help sign, that's a new sign that's come about, and those are still limited throughout the city. I know that I think they are looking to expand that program, but it's called helpcos.org is the website you can look at, and that's what those signs reference. It's a place where people can go, and the city has vetted some places, local service providers, and that way citizens can go to this website and find out good places where they can make a donation that will help further the homeless issues, getting people off the street, getting people meals and showers and things like that. That's a great clearinghouse, kind of where you can go and look. What's also very interesting, on helpcos.org, you can go on there and see the daily bed counts that are open at the shelters. There's always rumors in the community that the shelters are full, there's nowhere for people to go. Well, we might not have the capacity to put every single person that's on the street into shelter. At least it's a step in the right direction, because there are quite a few people that aren't going to take us up on that shelter space. So you can go on there today and look, and the Springs Rescue Mission had over 70 beds available, between men's and women's beds, and that's something the community doesn't know about, and it's helpcos.org.
So the handouts that help sign, so it's better to give to one of these organizations that's on this website to help the whole, transient homeless population overall.
Correct.
Okay. So
I can address that, Jason,
okay,
a little bit further. So, and the city's not trying to ask people, try to stomp on their generosity or their caring spirit, but you'll see these people in these corners day in and day out, year after year, and they're collecting money, and that hasn't helped them. It hasn't helped the situation, because historically that money will go to feed their addiction or the addiction of their group of friends, something like that. So when say handouts don't help, that's actually a very true statement.
Outstanding. The other thing that's coming and brought up is seems to be a perception that we have an increased population of homeless out in the Colorado Springs area, because people seem to be seeing these tents and these tent cities popping up closer to roadways and open spaces. Can you kind of address that a little bit for us?
Sure. So every year there's something called the Point in Time Survey. It's essentially a census of the homeless population. It's something they do nationwide. It's directed through the HUD department, through the HUD federal agency, and that study counts the homeless people in these cities, and in order to drive the resources, drive the shelter space and things like that. The last Point in Time survey was done a year ago, and at that time the Metro Colorado Springs area had 1,551 homeless people identified in our community. It's kind of how we say the best guess, and that's putting our best foot forward, because it does take a lot of manpower, a lot of volunteer time in order to count people, make sure there's not duplicate entries. And also, I'm sure there's people that we miss because they're out of a way place. Maybe they're staying in a car and they're traveling around, they're moving around every day. So 1,551 people experiencing homelessness in Colorado Springs and the outlying areas, that's a lot of people. Well, and so you're asking about the increase. Year over year, Colorado Springs has seen about a 10% increase annually in our homeless count. Whereas nationwide, the trend is actually trending down. So Colorado Springs, as we all know, is a very hot real estate market. Housing prices are going up, rental prices are going up. That is driving a lot of what we're seeing, because people can't afford maybe to pay the first and last month's rent, the security deposit, and all those things. And so the lack of affordable housing is probably the number one reason folks are on the street. And then we have other things going on like mental health concerns, drug and alcohol, substance abuse issues. And so you have all these lack of affordable housing, mental health issues, drug and alcohol issues. You combine all those things, and that's what we're seeing, is you're seeing more and more people on the street. But like I mentioned during the Help COS segment of this, the Springs Rescue Mission just added a couple hundred shelter beds. Here in a couple months, they're building right now an apartment complex, essentially. It's 65 units, and they're going to have permanent housing for people that are chronically homeless, that have severe mental health or health issues, and they're going to be able to put them into stable housing and hopefully address those things and get them back on their feet and get them stable again.
Sounds like we got some good plans in place. Yeah, I appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Hope that answers some of your questions. We'll see you next time on the next edition of Crime Prevention Thursday.